Real life.
Superpowers.
In many cases, the bad hires that we did, in most cases, within a month or two, you already knew it. But it's very likely to say, okay, let's give that person a chance. Let's do that. And it's not necessarily because the person is not good. Sometimes it's just not a good fit for the organization, and that person would be amazing in a different place. And lingering on that or stalling or trying to give another opportunity, maybe it will change, or I really need someone now. So having someone that is 30% or 50% capacity is better than having no one. And it's never the case. Everyone around sees that. It has a very negative impact on the company and all the culture. And in case you're blind to that, trust other people and build an environment where other people can tell you, hey, why are you stalling on that?
Hey everyone! In this episode, we speak with Ido Safruti, co-founder and CTO of PerimeterX, a company that provides digital threat protection for businesses and is valued at nearly $1 billion. The company was named number 49 on Deloitte's Fast 500 ranking highlights, with an incredible almost 4,000% growth in just 3 years. There's a lot entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs can learn from this guy. I'll let you hear for yourself.
Real life.
Superpowers.
Up in the sky, it's a bird. It's a plane.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
It's alive!
Real life.
Superpowers.
Ido, welcome to Real Life Superpowers.
Happy to be here.
So tell us, what are you up to these days?
For the last 6 and something years, running PerimeterX, which is a web application security company, founded in late 2014 with 2 other co-founders, Ido Safruti.
And tell us a bit about the company.
So the company, we offer a software as a service solution or a cloud solution to protect large consumer web applications from all kind of malicious activity. And the tier that we're protecting is more in the application level from all kind of security risks and other abuse level.
Did you end up launching this to scratch your own itch, or how did you end up on this journey?
Both Omri, Luz, the CEO, and me come from somewhat similar background, doing a lot of security work initially. So I was in the intelligence corps in Israel and was doing cybersecurity for quite a long time. And then when I left my military service, I decided to not do security and do a lot of web infrastructure, from building large websites, destination consumer websites. And then I joined MetaCafe as a general manager, managing all R&D and operations to build a very large destination site with tens of millions or hundreds of millions of users, and hitting and figuring out scale and seeing really web scale as an executive, as an employee. I was not the founder there.
Right after the army, like first job was already as an executive?
Yeah. I was in Talpiot. I'm a Talpiot graduate, so then I spent quite a fair amount of years in the army. My last roles, I was managing a few tens of people, running quite a lot of projects. So it gave me the right foundations to build a team. And I also joined MetaCafe when it was not like a huge company, so growing with it. From that, actually, I joined Cotendo, which is building infrastructure for websites. So I've seen what I had to build. I met the founders of Cotendo as they were building the company. They wanted feedback. Actually, a VC was asking me to do some due diligence on them, and we clicked. And I initially started as an advisor to them on how to build and knowing the customers. And later I joined as VP of product and strategy for the company and relocated to the US with them, with the CEO, with Ronnie Zabi, and built a very large CDN to support scalability of these kind of web applications. That company got acquired by Akamai. Omri worked at Cotendo as well, doing biz dev, relocated to the US as well. We're both there. Within Akamai, we stayed for a few years. And this is where we started seeing the need for a new approach for security. for web applications. All the security. So we had a good background in security, a good background in Webscale and building large scale applications with all the complexity and all the mixed services and adopting all kind of new technologies. What we saw is most web security companies were trying to basically force an enterprise security approach on web, and it didn't work well. It added a lot of friction. It didn't scale. We felt that this is the wrong way to solve this problem, and we're trying to figure out, can we come with a new approach to do that? Can we come with a new architecture, something that will make more sense, that will be designed for web scale? And after a few nights of brainstorming and trying different approach, we came out with the architecture that is now the foundation of the PerimeterX architecture. And we felt that this is something good. We started validating it with potential customers, friends, and other people from the industry. And
This was while you were still at your day job, right?
no. So we decided we want to do something. We left Akamai. I mean, we were trying to figure out like what would be the direction. We felt like, okay, we have a direction. We see the need. And then we left Akamai and started working on that.
When you think of a direction of defense, so the myth is that some of these companies use hackers or other people to actually attack the same things to defend their points. Is that true on the marketing level?
So I can speak for them. So we have, for instance, we called it a red team. The red team is basically working, it's a security researcher or a hacker that is working within the company and trying to attack our product to simulate an attacker to help us find potential loopholes or gaps in our product that are not efficient instead of waiting for attackers to do that. The myths are more about, if I'm selling you insurance, I can hire a goon to go and throw a stone at your window so that you will be incentivized. And this is not something that we're doing. In our world, it's also not something that we need to do. So if you look at, for instance, if I'm going to sell you endpoint security or a malware software, I don't know when was the last time that you actually had the virus installed on your laptop. Hopefully not anytime recently. So if you would want to test my product, you may run a POC, run for 2 weeks. It will not detect anything, but maybe you will also not infected by anything. When you're protecting large websites, they're constantly under attack. I don't need to simulate anything. So I just need to show that I can detect it and help mitigate. So in some cases, 50% or more of the visits to the website are malicious. So it's not that something that I need to hire someone to do that because it's just out there. I just need to identify them and point the finger at them.
On the cybersecurity side, I really understand what you're saying. By the way, publishers are really, they're used in a bad way most over. But there's not any legality around bots and what you're securing unless they sell something, of course. But that's probably a small percentile. So when you say malicious, it just means that they're not getting money or attribution for similar web traffic. And I'm trying to understand, like, how do you show them that it's actually not good for them? Yeah.
When you're visiting a site as a human with your browser and there is an analytics beacon that is collecting information about you, this beacon is reporting on a real human. Now, obviously with analytics, just like with ad fraud or click fraud and other aspects of it, there are attackers and again, attackers is a broad name. Not all of them are actually criminals, and not everything is illegal or malicious, but it's something that is not, let's say, against the terms of use of the site, or something that is hurting my business, that is exposing me to something that I don't want to. And we're helping them get visibility to that. So, for instance, if there are scanners or bots that are trying to collect information, they're not necessarily hurting you, but you don't want your marketing team to analyze them as legitimate users, and then their entire analytics is skewed because then they're saying, okay, this session did not convert. They did not end up buying, hence my marketing campaign is wrong, and they can, from garbage data, you can reach garbage decisions. So we're helping these kind of companies clean up the non-human traffic so that they can derive more insightful conclusions and do a better analysis. there are still companies that rather not know for different reasons. Sometimes you don't want to know for liability because what you don't know can hurt you, and once you know that there is some malicious activity or fraudulent activity, then you need to act on it. But in most cases, the advertisers are sophisticated enough as well. And the advertisers, if I buy traffic from a publisher and the clicks I get are not converting and not acting as human, then I will stop buying this traffic or I will pay less for it. And in many cases, if I will identify that they're non-human, then I can go and ask my money back. And in that case, this is even worse for me because if I'm a publisher and I had someone was paying me, let's say, a budget of $1,000 for advertising, and I had enough impression, but I put them and I spend half of this budget on bots that then he will later ask refund for, then I ended up not using the best my budget to the most efficient way. So I think there is a lot of value in it because at the end of the day, more and more advertisers are more sophisticated and they're measuring actions, real actions, and not just clicks and impressions. So the price ends up to that.
On that side, you talked about insurance. This is great. So like we know because we started you, so we know that you're amazing and you have a lot of experience. But you go to pitch right now and you tell those people, you said insurance was a really good example. So when I was younger, someone told me life insurance. I'm like, no, I'm invincible, right? So if you didn't have that problem, how do you know, like, how much is it worth? It's like tangible psychologists in economics, right? So how much is it worth me to not be a percentile of something that maybe in large statistics won't happen to me? Like, how do you approach that?
Most of our customers are already aware of that. Now, they might be aware of one thing, and once we're turning the service on, we're helping spotlights on other sections of their application that they weren't aware are being abused. But they're usually aware of that, so their return on investment is really obvious. When you're talking about something like giving you visibility into potential abuse or malicious code that may be injected into your application, the extreme case of a hacker managed to manipulate the JavaScript code on your site that is now stealing credit card information of users and siphoning it to a different site without you knowing is something that hopefully you don't have every day. But in that case, the risk of such a thing happening and the lack of visibility that you have to that and a potential fine of hundreds of millions of dollars, like British Airways were fined because they had something like this on their site. And Ticketmaster had another issue in the UK. So British Airways were fined about 200 and something million dollars for loss of data because they were liable and they were liable for loss of personal data and credit card information for shoppers on their site for a while because some hacker managed to modify a script on their site that collected information.
Ethically, I'm trying to think about it. Like, are they liable in your opinion, or?
There are regulations that are making them liable, and there are more and more regulations in more and more countries that are holding the services in charge and liable, and they need to prove that they did the minimal requirement or invested enough in preventing this kind of situation. If you're clearing credit cards on your site, you need to be PCI compliant. You need to apply certain security. You need to have certain security measures in place to protect that. And if you're not, or if you're losing credit cards, then the authority, again, it's not consumers that were suing them. It's the European Union that was suing them for that. And the risk is there is a CCPA, a standard in California that is basically forcing sites. If you're collecting, if you as a site are collecting personal information, sensitive information of your users, username, password, home address, preferences, social security number, what have you, then you are liable to apply the best in class measures to protect it, to protect this data. And if this data is breached, then you will pay by the amount of records that you breached and a minimum fine of X per user. And with GDPR, it could be X percentage of your annual revenue. So, I mean, you want to put a fine so that people will take it seriously, so that the data breaches that are happening so often on the internet will potentially cause less damage to users.
But there's some sort of revolution going on in the past few years with respect to regulation and privacy protection that I guess serves what you're trying to advance. And I'm trying to think, you entered this stage before all this regulation started, right?
So regulation is one scare tactic on the fine itself, but there is also reputation. If you know that a merchant that you're using is not diligent in storing, in securing your data, and that had a big data breach, your trust in this brand will decrease, and you may decide not to shop on this site again. When Macy's had a Mage Card event, which is this kind of front-end code that was injected, and they identified it within a week from it happening.
When was this?
I think 2 years ago about. Macy's had a breach that for about a week on their checkout, there was a script that managed to get injected that collected users' credit cards. Again, for British Airways, for Ticketmaster, it ran for a few months, and it took them also a long time to report it after they already found it and patched it. Macy's were extremely responsible. They identified within a few days. They stopped it. They immediately announced it and took actions. Their stock took a hit of about 10% when they announced, because of the brand reputation, not just because of the potential fine that they're going to get, but also because there's an impact. So customers care about it. Customers see the impact on their business. If you're not securing credit card, then there are other business impacts regardless of regulations that are there. Regulations are also to protect privacy of the users, and the governments are trying to do that to make sure that they're applying that. Yeah, GDPR, CCPA, and these things like this. But besides these regulations, I mean, there is the immediate impact on the business. And for some of the cases, again, it's more of the risk and abuse of the logic. If I am not protecting my data and this is not about security, if I'm letting my competitors scrape my pricing information and they can outbid me on every search engine, then I'm going to lose money. And that's not about security. That's about just helping control my inventory and making sure that I'm in charge and controlling who has access to my data, even though it is public. And it's sort of funny. Think of Amazon, Walmart, large retailers that are constantly trying to get the best price and charge that. There is no crime in trying to identify what is the price and what does every other competitor have in their inventory. And they want it to be as publicly available for the customers so that the customers can find it and buy it. But they want to make it harder for their competitors to get the entire database of things. They want to make it very easy for Google to scrape it so that when you're searching, you'll find the best price.
Got it. You're obviously very confident in what you're offering.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to understand how you started. Like, who was your first customer and how did you feel? Was it scary at first?
Yeah. So we had a lot of confidence in the architecture. We didn't know what would be the use case that will be sort of the
tipping point.
Yeah, the tipping point, or the one that will make the most sense. Because when you're looking at the use case, we build the architecture. We build an initial product. Before we wrote the first line of code, we came with this concept. We mocked up. So it's not that we didn't write any line of code, but we did a basic mock-up to see that the concept makes sense. Then we started interviewed about, let's say, 50 potential customers, even before raising funds. People are extremely happy to talk when you're not trying to sell them a product. Once you move over and say, okay, now I have a product and I want you to buy it, they're more suspicious and care about their time. But I know for myself, I mean, if a founder calls and say, hey, I have an idea, I want to get your perspective on it, I'm always happy to share some time and provide feedback.
So that's what you did.
So that's what we did. We used our network, and it started with friends, started with previous customers that we knew, and reached out to different people and asked friends of friends, and got to all kind of financial services, retailers, large websites, just talking to them, asking for their time, sharing our thought, trying to listen to what are their problems, and if they would have that, what will they try to solve with it.
But that's a great tactic. And I think this also gets cognitive buy-in in a sense, because now that people have invested time in you and they've helped you, they're a lot more on board. And when you're going to come with the ask, probably chances are a lot more of those are going to now quote unquote convert, or maybe even not quote unquote. It's actually what it is. More of them are going to now be your customers.
Yeah, definitely continue then into being design partners and sort of beta customers and converted customers. Some of them did not, but it definitely helped in establishing that and validating that. For us, especially because our product is based on data, so it's not something that I can build in the lab for work for 2 years and only then meet the first customers. So we got a strong validation, and we got the main problem that they kept on saying that they would use it for was bot mitigation, because that problem started happening there. There were a few vendors who were trying to solve that, but in a very different architecture by providing a box that you put in your data center, which is not very scalable or fun. And they had a lot of issues with it. So we decided for that to be the first product, and this is how we built it. Now, 2 months after we hired our first engineers, we already had a couple of design partners to run traffic on, because the learning algorithms that are trying to identify anomalies and collect the information, you need actual traffic for that. So having customers was critical. Now, design partners, they're not paying, they're getting insights, so some of them are happy to do that.
This is the first I've heard of this term.
You can think of it, sometimes it might be an existing partner for different products. Now we have some existing customer who are design partners for a new product. But the idea is the design partner, by definition, they know that they're helping you design a new product. So they're not expecting to get a fully baked, mature product. The benefit for them is they get early preview and the ability to influence on the product, because the feedback that they are providing goes directly to the product and engineering team, and they're constantly trying to solve the problem for them. So they get the value, we get the value from having a customer, which is sort of the dream for any product manager, to have someone who constantly, the customer sitting on a daily channel with them, providing feedback and telling them what they want.
It's like a developer on an application.
But it's amazing to actually have those people who are selling, you're going to sell to, as those partners. Is that like a very common best practice?
It is more common, yeah. Definitely in B2B. So you work with a few. Sometimes they may pay or not. They may get promise of, okay, they get the service for free until the product is released, and then they may get a discount for the first year. I mean, you want to incentivize them on their investment, but the promise, and they know that, I mean, and they're motivated because they will do that not as a favor. I mean, if you're solving a problem that they care about, then you're starting to solve it for them early, and they get a product that is designed almost tailored for them. So it's great. So they're happy to pay for it over time.
And this is fascinating to me because your product is essentially not very human friendly at the end of the day. It's all about bots and cyber, and yet you've established your entire business on relationships. At the beginning, through the POC, you didn't even really write code, and then through those design partners, it's always about the people that you work with, right? Yeah,
I think B2B, this is what I like in B2B business versus B2C. It's obviously my history and how I grew and what I know, but when you're designing for consumers, you in many cases need to educate them. You can't just what is the problem that you have. In many cases, you're inventing a new product and trying to educate them on new things and get the market. Where with business to business, you're solving usually a problem that they have. They may not express it exactly. They may not know how to do that. You need to come with innovative ways of doing that. But you can really work with a partner from day one and solve and just listen to your customers. You don't need millions of customers. You need tens or hundreds or thousands. You can work with them. You can establish a much more personal relationship with the people using the product. And if you're listening and doing what you're told, then you already have the way to success. It's also in many cases not a winner's take it all. So there won't be 3 Facebooks because once the platform is there, it's a winner takes it all. Where in business to business, you can have more than one operating system. You can have you have checkpoints in Palo Alto network, and because also even just the nature of enterprise, they're bidding, they want to get 3 offers. So you need to have multiple vendors.
And what about your internal team? I mean, how many are the team now?
So the company is about 200 employees now.
Wow. And so what was that like growing?
It's fun. I mean, we didn't grow. It took us 6 years now to get to this number, but the first year we were growing what felt very rapidly, but again, to be 10, 15 employees and more.
But now that you're 6 years into this with 200 team members, I'm sure you made a lot of mistakes. What would you advise scaling entrepreneurs?
What's your favorite mistake?
Favorite mistake? I think the best advice that few people told me, and it's easy to tell, and it's always hard to practice, and it's easier also to observe as a bystander. So in that case, in many cases, having people you trust that can watch and tell you that, but I think hire fast and fire fast, or hire slow and fire fast, actually. I mean, the cost of hiring the wrong hire is very high for the organization because you're investing a lot of it, you're investing on boarding. So try to figure out as fast as possible, and you'll still make mistakes. And when you feel it's wrong, then cut it off, because it's very rarely that, in many cases, the bad hires that we did, in most cases, within a month or 2, you already knew it. But it's very likely to say, okay, let's give that person a chance. Let's do that. And it's not necessarily because the person is not good. Sometimes it's just not a good fit for the organization, and that person would be amazing in a different place. And lingering on that, or stalling, or trying to give another opportunity, maybe it will change, or I really need someone now. So having someone that is 30% or 50% capacity is better than having no one. And it's never the case. Everyone around sees that. It has a very negative impact on the company and all the culture. And in case you're blind to that, this is where, because I know for me, it's very easy to see when a peer or someone else is struggling with letting go someone or making this decision. You can be blind to that. So trust other people and build an environment where other people can tell you, hey, why are you stalling on that?
How was the transition for you to become an entrepreneur in the business world, as opposed to being the, at that time, I don't know, and now the designistic intelligence corp, doing it for the greater good and doing it from the business side? But like, how is that transition, and how does that affect like your day-to-day today?
So I think there are people who did it better, so to speak. People who came right out of the military as founders to a big success, or not, but I mean, had the confidence to start something, coming into the business world where you have no experience. Again, you don't have really a real notion of customers and of competition and other things in the army, of marketing, of sales, ROI. The budget is not really something that you just ask for more. So and the workforce is extremely cheap in the army. So I didn't become an entrepreneur the second I left the military service. I actually joined as an executive in 2 companies until I felt confident. So I was sort of a late bloomer, so to speak, on the entrepreneurship. I always felt part of it, because with MetaCafe I felt I'm part of I'm part of the team, and you feel the anxiety of building something and the stress of a startup. But it's never the same when you are the founder. You can always walk if you're upset or if something doesn't go, and as a founder it's harder to do that. So it took me some time to feel confident, to feel rounded enough, doing engineering, product, working close with sales and marketing in the US, to feel like, okay, now I feel like I can bring enough to a company to found it. Other people are doing it on the run.
What was like the biggest difference in working as a team in like intelligence corp or not?
Hiring is always hard. Even in again, you may have a supply of talented kids, but even there, I mean, even with the talented people, you need to fight for resources with other units. You need to identify and hire and train and build a culture, because you can get the best engineer, but if you don't manage them right, if you don't build the right environment, to set the right goals and motivate them, then you won't get good results. So I think in that sense, building a team is building a team. You're using maybe different motivational factors into that, and applying different, is it like curiosity? Are you solving a bigger problem? Are you going to be rich, or are you going to save the world? But at the end of the day, people want, besides the monitoring and all that aspects, I mean, as long as you're developed, I think the key for managers, for management, and for employee satisfaction is you need to be clear on the goals. You need to make sure that they're feeling that they're constantly being developed and growing as people by learning more skills and doing more things and getting visibility. And this is true in both ways. I mean, in the military and intelligence and other things, part of the challenge is when people finish their mandatory duty, how many of them will stay? And this is even much harder because the salaries outside are much higher. So if you build the right team, then people will stay for longer and contribute. In the company, it's the same thing. I mean, you need to motivate them.
Your company has been identified and you've been receiving credentials and marked as very successful and on the path to exploding in a good way. Do you remember a specific moment in time when it sort of hit you, okay, this is real, this is happening?
I mean, it's just an ongoing journey where every milestone, I mean, with a lot of up and downs. I mean, it's easy. Usually you talk about all the highs and all the accolades and the recognition, but being a founder, you can have highs and lows in the same day and feel like, okay, I'm invincible or everything is going to crash. I think the longer you go, the more milestones you go through, you feel, okay, I feel comfortable that this is not going to disappear tomorrow, but there is the constant stress of, will I fulfill my potential? Will I fulfill the growth? Will I be what I promised? Am I doing what I can to my shareholders, to my employees, that I'm feeling responsible to make sure that I'm providing the brightest future for them? I mean, you're constantly in stress and you never feel comfortable like, okay, I made it, we're in a safe place.
How do you navigate that stress? What do you tell yourself?
It's not easy. I don't know. I mean, every once in a while, it's good to reflect back and look at the things that you did do and look at the positive. It's more about that. It's enjoying the moments where, with the wins, with the accolades, with a major customer win, when you get good recognition from a customer and hearing something that is good, or an employee that is happy about how things are doing, and then going back to seeing all the problems and on why things can go wrong, so that you can continue fixing them and growing further.
Do you have some sort of daily habits or things that keep you on track?
I'm trying to keep a fairly strict schedule. It was much easier in COVID because no travel and things like this. So starting every day with a workout, having lunch, dinners in fixed hours, having meetings, family times. So it's more making the cadence. And one thing that I find is very helpful for focus, it's, again, not rocket science, and many management books or time management are saying that, but ending every day and looking back at what I did from the things I was trying to achieve, taking a mental note or a physical note in a notebook on what rolled out for the next day, and identifying before tomorrow, like, what are the things that I'm planning to do tomorrow, if it's customer meeting, or if it's actual tasks. That helps me at least sleep better and not constantly being stressed about, oh, what do I need to do tomorrow? What did I miss today? Because if you're taking the few minutes to just summarize the day at the end of the day and reflect it in the morning when you wake up, it helps be more efficient for me.
What do you see as your superpower?
I really like to solve problems.
Like, you're probably a very good partner. And that's a feeling. Like, I can trust every word you're saying.
Very grounded.
Very. And on that side, by the way, the kryptonite would be?
My kryptonite? There are many. I'm trying to figure, sometimes in trying to solve problem and in getting analytical, one thing is it's easy for me to get into an argument, not as in just a fight, or to get into the details too much. And I constantly trying to remind myself and my team and managers to take that perspective. And this is where I'm trying to put practices and things in my day to help me do that, like taking the notes at the end of the day, because you can be extremely satisfied, and I can be extremely satisfied by doing a lot of work that is very tactical because you supposedly achieve it. So I really like the details, and sometimes I can lose the picture from the details, and this is something that I'm always concerned about.
Interesting, and not surprisingly, very self-critical and aware. You have this zen going for you, which is great, and you don't see it much with entrepreneurs who are in such a roller coaster. And so, what's next in store for you, Ido? Where are you going to be in 5 years?
Who do you want to be known as in 5 years?
Yeah, I like that better.
I mean, I like what I'm doing. I like being an entrepreneur. I like inspiring or driving directions for people. I like building new products. I want PerimeterX to be a public company or a large established company. Will I be in PerimeterX in 5 years, or will PerimeterX already be established and do something else? Probably, but I mean, I want to be known for that, for being an entrepreneur, for building stuff and making the world better.
It seems like you're on the right path, and that's fantastic to witness.
Thanks.
So thank you very much for doing this interview.
And I'm so happy that we did this interview and I didn't die. For our listeners, tried this already, and I got a random allergic reaction, which saved my life by telling me my head was round, and I physically didn't know if I should say sorry for dying in the middle of the podcast or just broom it away and say, okay, we're going to do it. So I'm happy to survive this one, and we'll definitely see you in another 5 years. Like if you said IPO, like now that I'm getting to know you, it's going to be IPO and it's going to be better. So, you should take it literally with this guy and you keep us tuned.
Thank you. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you, Ido. Lots of luck.
Real life.
Superpowers.